Hello and welcome to the Rabblecast. My name is Eric Hernandez, and you are listening to episode number 639. On this episode, we talk about a little pro wrestling in the beginning and some experiences here and there, but then we jump into the idea of getting used to not owning the things that you buy, whether that's right to repair with phones, vehicles, equipment, subscription models, services, and toys. This one, I had an idea where this one was going to start off when we started the episode, because I've read a few news stories here and there, and I mentioned a few of them in the episode itself. Doug and I just go with this one, and the twists and turns that it takes. A lot of fun, very enjoyable. Probably one of my more enjoyable episodes for me personally. Don't get me wrong, I always have a fun time, but I had a few laughs. I had a good time. Doug did it as well, from the sound of it. So, without delay, let's get into this. We are brought to you by InsidePulse.com. You can find us under the multitude of different categories: games, comic books, movies, TV, and wrestling. You can also find the show over at Rabblecast.libsyn.com. Check us out on YouTube at Rabblecast. Follow the Rabblecast Facebook fan page. Send us a tweet at Rabblecast and email us, rabblecast@gmail.com. Let us know your thoughts, ideas, if you want to send anything in, any stories, pictures, whatever the case is. We always welcome it. It's always a good time. So like I said, I'm not going to prolong this any further. Let's get into it. Enjoy the show.
What is the point of the 10 seconds?
So the point of the 10 seconds is when I'm doing editing later on, it gives me some clear air, or some, I should say, like free space when I have to do noise reduction or remove anything from the background. It's an overall sweep of any like weird noise or sounds. A few episodes back, I couldn't tell you which one. I'm sure if I listened to the raw file, I'd find it. But we had a ground loop, which is just like the slight buzz, like a zzz. Like, it persisted throughout the episode. I couldn't figure it out that night. It looked like it was a loose cable somewhere. But it actually helped a little bit because I could use it in the first 10 seconds of the show to eliminate background noise.
Oh, okay.
So little clicks, little sounds when we shift around where our surroundings, whatever the case is. A little peek behind the curtain for everybody. I'm at home in my living room, set up. Not the greatest setup for a recording studio or recording project, but it gets the job done. So I have my microphone stand, my table here, my iPad recording device all set. You are on your phone, correct?
Correct.
So let me ask you something. How often are you actually like with the phone to your head, or do you have me on speaker?
You're on speaker, and I'm just holding up the phone and talking to it.
Okay. So those little inconsistencies that pop up every now and then, whether it's due to cellular junk or noise or artifacts, whatever you want to refer to it as, I can try to get those out as well if they pop up from time to time. Those will come out more on my end than your end, I believe. But it just, the 10 seconds overall just helps try to quality control the sound. So if I have in all honesty, I don't need 10 seconds. It just gives me more to work with.
Okay.
Especially at the end, I'll let it, like, once we say our goodbyes for the night, I'll let it run for like an additional 3 seconds maybe. And then I'll kill it. And then I also have that on the back end if anything pops up there. Because things change as we record, again, shifting around everything else. But that's the long answer to what's the 10 seconds for. So
cool.
That just gives us an ability to make sure that we get better sound overall. Good?
All right. There we go. Everything you ever wanted to know about audio, podcast recording, podcasting, and you're good to go.
Exactly. Look, I like to think that after so many years of doing this and different iterations and different setups, I've learned something. The the nicest thing about this setup, I might have mentioned this in the past, we use the Zoom PodTrack P4, which helps tremendously because back in the day, if I ever wanted to do a remote session, and we've done one at least, you had to go through this whole thing. It's called mix minus, where you had to make sure that the levels are correct and you had the feed coming in a certain way, so your cable setup had to be done a certain particular way. I took pictures of like diagrams online. I tried committing it to memory, but it was always something like I just couldn't hold on to it. And one of the interviews that we had, it was for the it was on Amazon. It was the Miranda murders. The one gentleman who was directing it. I don't know if he wrote it or I can't remember. Why am I blanking on his name? Something. I think it was Matthew Rosevalley.
That sounds about right. Yeah, we spoke with him in October of 2017.
Yeah, I remember we had the initial setup and it wasn't going well, and I said, "Hey, we're gonna have to redo this." He was really nice. He was accommodating. It was this whole thing back and forth, and it just didn't work out the way I wanted to. I felt like the whole experience could have been done a lot better. I apologized to him profusely, but he was nice enough to record on his end, his audio, and I had our audio, and I spliced the two together. And there was a little, if you listen, you can hear the changeover, but it worked out. I did the best with what I had, and it was an experience in of itself. Mr. Rose Valley was really nice to take the time and talk to us. The movie is interesting to say the least. I mean, it's got a lot of backstory to it. It's based on historical events. If you check it out, really, really interesting. But that whole interview, I wish I could have gone back and done better with it. This equipment that I have now, which Jen was nice enough to buy me a few years ago for my birthday, eliminates having to do the mix minus of it all because it actually does it internally, which for me, freaking awesome. All I had to do was buy a Bluetooth adapter that was also made by the same company, plug it in. Now, if I ever want to take a remote call, which we are doing right now, it's great because now you don't have to be in the same space as me. We can do it through a phone. We could do it through a computer if I, set it up to my laptop or stuff like that. Truth be told, there was a couple times where after I've got off the phone with you, I've called up other friends. I'm like, hey, how's it going? And just never told them that they're on the microphone. I wasn't recording, but I would just continue speaking to them through the microphone and through the headphones I'm wearing. And like, hey, what's going on? And they would just have a whole conversation. And then I'm like, oh, you're on my recording rig, just by the way. You go, am I being recorded? Did I say anything stupid? It's like, no, this is not. Just wanted to see, just testing it out, see what it's like and everything else. And it's honestly, like, I don't know what I've done with, without this before. Like it just makes things so much easier. Our other recording rigs, the mixing board, has been larger because it accommodates, about 4, maybe 6 inputs depending. And I think I still have them. In fact, yeah, they're in the tote under our computer desk. So a lot of the old microphones, a lot of the old cords, all that stuff is kind of like put away because it's not obsolete, but it's just not as useful as it once was. So this whole setup has definitely made things a lot easier. I could sit up here. I could sit up in the bedroom. I could sit up in my car. If I had a fresh pair of batteries, we could do an episode, if I was sitting outside. So it's, so long as my phone holds a charge and so long as the unit either is AC power or AA is put in, we're good to go. So,
all right.
I'm happy because I was able to put in a new memory card. I looked up online. I was in the community threads and I was asking, hey, look, I'm running into this problem. They're like, oh yeah, you need a class 10 card. SD cards are useful, but you might as well just stick to the regular. Sorry, SD micro cards are useful, but you might as well just stick to the regular SD cards. Those are your better bet. So I'm like, oh, okay, no problem. It's something I learned. So my old micro, I'm going to offload all the files, archive them, have those, and then I'm probably going to reformat the card for something else, probably for my 3D printer, and just go from there. So I'm learning. I've learned things throughout the years. Jimmy taught me some stuff. I tried learning Jimmy's rig from the recording studio back in the day, but He had a completely different setup. He was using his Mac. He was using a different program that I was used to. But I'll have to say that I loved that recording space. There's
Which one?
something, the one in Somerville above the recruiting place.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. I know which one. Yeah.
It used to be the coffee house where we used to all hang out at above there. But there's something about leaving your home to go to a place to do the podcast that for me always felt better, because I felt like, I have to be somewhere, I have to do something, I have to arrive at a certain time, all that. And it just, it felt more natural. I don't mind being home. I don't mind being in the living room. The show has been done from the living room in the past. So it's kind of nice, but again, not the greatest setup as far as sound or acoustics. So that studio had a nice size to it. Jimmy had put up the sound panels on the walls. He had a bunch of different things going, and it was nice because it was a lived-in space. So I've mentioned before, I think we were talking about the one episode where you would cover, it was either Tex Arcana murders or Hinterkaifeck, where we like turned the lights down and we had like little candles and going on in the studio. So it gave it like a nice ambiance for us. Nobody else knew what was going on, but it just lent itself to make the storytelling a little better at that point. So like, oh, this is nice and cozy. So if I could ever get back to that, that's one of my goals. I would love to have that again. But we'll see what happens. I'm working with what I got. So
All right.
out of curiosity, can you not in full detail, but could you describe your surroundings?
Okay. I'm sitting in my living room. Um, it's a pretty basic living room. I got a couch. You remember that old wooden chair, the black one?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm sitting in that right now. I got a coffee table. I got a TV. Um, uh, yeah, I got a bookshelf. It's a pretty basic. I don't know, man. It's a pretty basic
No,
living
you don't.
space.
I mean, just my microphone real quick. You don't have to go too much further in detail. It's just an example of like your setup might not be ideal as well for acoustics when it comes to recording, but it sounds fine when you're coming through the phone. Like, besides the fact like it sounds like you're on a phone, not bad.
Hmm.
So, because I've had people ask every now and then, and they'll complain sometimes. You've got some audio files who'll say, oh, this sound came through, it was annoying, or this thing, I wish you would watch it a little bit more when you pop your P's. I think we've talked about this before. I have a filter on my microphone as well as a windscreen. Sometimes they just get through. The sound of when you say popcorn, I'm doing this off mic so it doesn't sound as bad, or pencil, stuff like that. Unfortunately, there are certain sounds that you make with your mouth that when you record, there's going to be certain little peaks and valleys when you speak. And it's now knowing, going through so many years of playback and catching little things, you get used to little nuances in speech pattern. I know I have little things here and there. I try to clean it up in playback. You have certain things that pop up from time to time. And it's all just, lends itself to trying to make the show better. So we go from there, we learn, and just keep applying what we've learned throughout the years. I cringe now because I remember when I first started the Libsyn page for the Rabblecast,
Yeah.
I reposted the very first episode of the show. So if you want to listen to Jamie and myself just go on about wrestling, it's one, I sound younger, which like terrifies me. It's
Huh.
a much more immature version of myself. But the show quality overall was just different. And we were doing it in his bedroom at the time. We had two microphones plugged into one output. So it was like this whole other thing. So if you look at the different rigs that we've had, and when I say we, I mean the show itself, no one in particular, different locations we've recorded in, different setups that we've had, even the one time where Mike and I went to what was the show? I'm trying to remember the name of the wrestling promotion, UWA, Elite
Okay.
Wrestling, when they invited us out to the Boonton Theater in Boonton, New Jersey. It was the night that we saw, oh gosh, I can't remember the freaking main event. Damn it. Regardless, nice theater. If you've ever gone to the Boonton Theater, they put on regular productions and plays, but every now and then they'll rent it out to different wrestling companies and they'll let them set the ring up on stage. So you can sit either in the regular seats or you can sit up in the balcony and you can watch a wrestling match. And it was fun because we set up in the balcony and we actually called some of the matches. We had some of the wrestlers come up and they helped do color commentary. And I was trying to play the straight man as they were, leaning into their characters. Those never actually got released, but at least we knew that we could go to remote locations so long as we had the right setup. Now with this especially, it would be much easier. All we need is a table and the equipment, but it would give us the opportunity to do that. For a second there, I was conflating UWA with another promotion, which I believe was an all-women's wrestling group. And I'm blanking on that one too. But the main event for that one, what's that?
Glow.
It wasn't Glow. No, it was a Jersey.
Yeah, I know, I'm being silly.
Yeah. I wish I could remember, but
Shimmer? Was it Shimmer?
I want to say it was not Shimmer.
Okay.
It might have been Wow.
Okay.
But they had Mercedes Martinez taking on Angel Orsini in what was probably one of the most knockdown, drag-out fights I've ever seen. They fought in the ring. They fought on the stage. They spilled over into the seats. They fought outside. They came back in, fought upstairs, were on one of the little balcony alcoves on the side. And after, I want to say it was Mercedes threw Angel to the other balcony, she leapt from one balcony to the other, attacking her. I was like, what the fuck are you guys doing? So it's also great to see Mercedes now. She's been in AEW. She's popped up in other promotions. She's getting more popular. So she's gotten her recognition after putting her body through so much punishment over the years. She's a honest to goodness worker and she's always been good people. So doubt should ever remember me or my wife. We were there for one of the women's J Cup. We were always social with the girls and everything else. So everybody was like, hey, how you doing? And they would remember you from the indie shows, but I doubt she's probably met so many people and gone so many places that if I popped up somewhere, hey, remember me? Fuck no. Fair enough.
But Eric, I've never heard of a Mercedes Martinez before. Does she have other names she's wrestled under?
I don't think she has actually. That's a very good question. I don't remember if she used any other gimmicks in the past. I remember for the women's J Cup, she was entered into that. I think we were out at Woodbridge when she won that one. This is years ago. We're talking about 07, 08. She's in AEW. I want to say she made a stopover at TNA. I know WWE had her for a short while at NXT. I think at the very least at the Performance Center. Because I remember her taking a photo with Triple H.
Mm-hmm.
But she's been around. If you look up Mercedes Martinez, she's a badass and she can work. So the fact that she's been popping up here and there, I think it was a year or two ago, she was all over the place. And I was like, fuck yes, man. It's great when you meet somebody in the world of professional wrestling and they're nice. They talk to you. You can pick their brain a little bit. And then, you don't keep track with them, but then you see them succeed. You see them over and over again, just applying what they've learned throughout the years, learning from their mistakes and just going out there and working. And she's one of those people that when her name popped up in some of the news outlets, I was like, oh, that's awesome. I'm so happy for her. I hope that continues. So there was another girl from a few years back. I was invited to a indie show here in Jersey where essentially they were trying to get some of the old locker room that we used to hang out in back for a battle royal. I'm a sucker for battle royal. I've said it before. And as soon as they said, oh, just come back for a match and we can have some fun and get together with the old guys. Sure. Not a lot of the old guys showed up, but some familiar faces. It was nice to see some guys that I started out with, and some people continued wrestling. Other ones kind of fell off a little bit, but they've done other things. And I remember we were setting up the match. Sorry, wrestling is all pre pre-planned, choreographed, whatever the case is. But as we're setting up the battle royal, they're calling out the different names. You know, you're going to do this. You're going to do that. You guys are going to be the final four. You guys figure it out what you want to do from there. It was probably like one of the least structured battle royals I've ever been in. I've been in battle royals where they literally give you a time mark, and the ref will say, "Okay, it's your time," and then you got to do whatever planned spot that was going to eliminate you. That was just to make sure that we kept to a certain run length. But this one was like, no, just go out there, have fun, entertain the crowd. So long as it's hot, it's great. If it starts to drag, then let's start making changes. Okay, great. Sounds awesome. But
Damn.
as we're going through the whole thing, they're calling out different names. And all of a sudden I hear them say, La Brava. And everybody looks around like, who the fuck is La Brava? This, I don't know. I want to say she's Puerto Rican. She's like 5'3", small girl, but, in shape and can definitely work. I saw her working out a little bit, and she raises her hand. She goes, "I'm La Brava." She goes, "You're La Brava?" Everybody looks around like, there's like a moment of confusion. He goes, "Okay, well, you're in the Battle Royal." So out of nowhere, a girl has entered into the Battle Royal. We weren't expecting it. When you say La Brava, it's just like, in Spanish, it's the angry one. And because it's got the A at the end, it's the female connotation. So I should have picked up on it from the get-go, but I thought like something was being said incorrectly. But it was fun because she came out. She was, for the night, she was the manager or the valet for her tag team.
Yeah.
Controversial Inc., I believe is the name of the tag team. I can't remember the guys' names. All a great bunch, great people. We worked with them in the Battle Royal. But she came out. She was going to do the spot, and they had set it up. And she just, rather than like getting scared or saying, I can't do that, she goes, "All right, I'm in." And we pulled off the Battle Royal. The whole thing went off great. Everybody loved it. The spot she did was well received. She was essentially picked up for a body press and then flung out over the top rope, and her tag team caught her, and they all like spilled over. It was a whole to do, and it was just crazy and lots of fun. But stuff like that, when you see her, since then I started following her on social media because we got to talking with her and her friends, and it just became like this, quick kinship, essentially. I guess, you can say because we're all Spanish wrestlers, but we kept talking and kept having fun. And then I've been following her career, and she pops up every now and then, and she travels her ass off. She's in Florida. She's in Puerto Rico. She's in different states here in the United States. She's always somewhere. She's always working with other ladies, and she's always vying for different titles in different companies. I'm like, Jesus Christ. All right. So that's what you call a worker. She's just out there doing it. So
Yeah.
it's always fun to see. I guess you could say I'm kind of like living vicariously through her. The majority of my matches have taken place in Jersey. I think we've gone to, let's see, we went to Connecticut once. We went to New York a couple times. I don't think I was ever involved in the PA trips for our company. But now I can't recall if there's any other ones. Damn it. Delaware. We've gone to Delaware because I held a tag team championship with my cousin in Delaware. So we've been able to travel different places, but it's been pretty like concise and clustered to the Northeast. Knowing these guys who go West Coast, down south, Canada, or even Japan, it's just like, hey, if you guys can figure that shit out and make it work for you and get paid, that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the life of a worker on the road. And sometimes, like we talk about the WWE schedule being kind of crazy. Those guys are at least getting paid a certain amount. Imagine on the road, you're like hawking your merch. You're trying to, make things happen, book matches, and stay relevant as far as the bookers are concerned, and hope that you're going to get invited back in 6 months to a year and just continue working at show after show after show. That's great, especially if you don't have to work a day job or you don't have to worry about regular income. If that can be your thing, more power to you. Just be prepared. Be prepared for long nights, long car trips. There was a time where La Brava and the guys, Controversial Inc., where they went to Puerto Rico, and after they were done working, their flight was canceled. Not only was their flight canceled, but like all the flights leaving Puerto Rico and coming in for some reason there was like some kind of labor dispute, and they could not leave, so they actually had to find a place, try to raise some money, and stay in Puerto Rico for a while. Which you like, oh, it's great. It's great if you have money.
Hmm.
They did not. So I remember her posting. We were trying to get help at one point because we thought a friend of ours was going to be flying in on his personal plane, and maybe he could like pick them up and get out, but it didn't work out. Thankfully, they were able to manage on their own and fly out of there. But stuff like that, you just never know what's going to happen. Imagine that right now. We are once again in Jersey about to get a second dose of snow in a week.
Mm-hmm.
So imagine
Yep.
if you're traveling and, things get too bad, you got to find a motel or something. And then what happens if the snow gets really bad? Now you have to stay in the motel for 1, 2, maybe 3 days, depending on the roads and depending on the conditions. Stuff like that can and will happen. So the fact that there's people out there doing that, more power to them. Because I don't know, I joined wrestling for the fun of it. Like I just wanted to like live a dream, and that was to be able to perform in a wrestling ring. I wasn't ever trying to be in the WWE, but for the people that go out there and just do this as their main gig, more power to them, because it can be difficult, it can be crushing at times, but at the same time, I can imagine it being oh so rewarding, especially when you're in front of the crowds and you're in front of the big reactions, and you finally get those big victories. I mean, I know they say wins and losses really don't matter in world of professional wrestling, but there is nothing like being able to get the 1, 2, 3 count, and if there is gold involved or a title involved, being able to hold it high after you're done, like fuck yes. There is a certain amount of feeling like fuck man, like I just gotta, I feel accomplished. I got recognized. This is awesome, because again, wrestling is predetermined, but being able to know that the booker or whoever the person who's putting the matches together says, "Oh, you're going to go over, or we need you to be the champion, or you're going to carry this for the next 6 months to a year, whatever the case is." Setting up storylines. If you get picked for that, like the night my cousin and I won the tag titles, we were not supposed to win that night, but something else had happened. They needed to call an audible, and they looked at us like, "You guys, can you do this?" Like, yeah, let us know what you want us to do. We went out there. I thought we put on a good match, won the titles, and then for a few months we were tag champs in Delaware.
Mm. All right.
Our return match, we had to lose them, but that's what's called doing the job. We went out, had another great match with the two rude dudes, and we gave them a nice match. We worked really well together, and they ended up coming out on top that day, and it was just fun all around because we were just all brothers in the locker room. So always a lot of fun. Shout out to Corey Havoc, and remember if he went by his regular name, I'm just gonna call him Rogers because he was always a great guy. So always fun, always something to look out for when you're on the road. So yeah.
All right.
I did have a topic for tonight, actually.
What you got there, guy?
Have you been hearing recently? It's been coming up more and more, especially as far as the economy is concerned, where companies are starting to say, get used to not owning stuff. Have you heard this?
Unfortunately, yes, I have.
So more specifically, it came up with, let's see. Okay, so back in the day, and I'm talking about like 5, maybe 10 years, if you were to buy a computer program, let's say Microsoft Office, a drafting program, just, a suite that you would use for something, you would buy it for $100, 200, 300, whatever the package that you're buying. You pay one flat rate for whatever version of it that you're buying. You load it up on your computer, use it for whatever you're going to do, and it's yours. You can always come back to it. You can always use it again. You essentially had a perpetual license for that copy that you own. If you wanted to use that program on another computer, you can load it up over there, but you had to disable the other one, put in the little license key, just to say that, yes, I bought this, I am the owner, I am authorizing the use on this machine. No big deal, right?
Nope. It is what it is.
Now, programs like Office, drafting programs, antivirus, a bunch of other things. Now they've switched over to a subscription model. So what used to be a perpetual license now is, hey, you still have the program and you still use it. We'll give you access to the base functions. But if you want the updates, if you want the continuing, how do I put this? Continuing features. So whatever it may be for like antivirus drafting, like I said, or an Office program. If you want the latest and greatest, you're going to have to pay us a monthly subscription fee.
Yep.
And it's like, whoa. I bought this. I have the license. What the hell happened? It used to be a perpetual license. Why is it suddenly now being upgraded to a subscription model? Oh, this is the way we're going forward, and all the programs we're going to be using are going to use this. So if you avoid updating said program, yeah, you can probably hold on to the older version as long as you're, cool with having the older version and not being able to do some of the newer stuff with the bells and whistles. Not a big deal in certain cases. Now, I believe it was Ubisoft, funny enough, the director of subscriptions, also it reiterates saying that, gamers should get used to not owning the game that they're playing. It's like, what the fuck? doesn't quite make sense. But if you think about it, a lot of the games that are out there, especially some of the popular ones, you can download the game for free, quote unquote. But if you want to get access to all the features of the game, if you want to continue to play the game on a regular basis with the different updates, you'll have to buy a season pass. It's become a very popular term. And a season pass, all that is another version of a subscription. So I remember for Call of Duty a few years back, I was playing it, and I was an avid player. Just it was fun to let loose and play a few rounds, and I wasn't looking to win. I was just looking to cause chaos, and it was always fun. But if you wanted to play in their seasons and get access to all the different rewards and perks as you play and gain levels, not just for your weapons, but for your avatar, your characters, your little ID pictures, or whatever the case is. They found little things to try to keep adding to the season or the season pass to make it more viable for you to cough up, what was it, like 10, 15 bucks, I think it was. So I was like, okay, do I want to play? Do I not want to play? Whatever the case was. You could play the game. You just wouldn't get all the rewards you would normally get if you had unlocked them all through buying the season pass. So now this has become a kind of a backlash for Ubisoft and for the gaming world, because they're saying, okay, wait a minute. So you're saying get used to not owning the games that you play. Isn't that piracy? Aren't you legitimizing game piracy at this point? Isn't that what happened?
What do you mean game piracy?
Isn't that what happened back in the day with Napster and the music world? Where they're saying, get used to not owning the materials that you buy. So back when Napster came out and everybody was like, I can download the entire discography of, Pink Floyd or Rolling Stones or whatever other classic band or other artists. So wait. I don't have to own it, but I can download it. That's free. And Napster pretty much turned the music industry on its head, because now you don't buy albums. You have the option of downloading an album. In my case, I have an iPhone, so I can download an album or a song, and it's a digital copy on my phone, but I don't actually physically own the album.
Okay. Yeah, now I follow you.
So for any reason, let's say, because I remember back with Led Zeppelin, when they first started doing singles, you could just buy individual songs off of the Apple iTunes store or music store, whatever it's called now. Back in the days, it was iTunes. They would release individual songs. You can buy them for like $1, $1.50, or $2, whatever the case was. You didn't have to buy the whole album. Led Zeppelin actually sued Apple, saying, no. We never intended for our album to be released by individual songs. It's an entire work. It's supposed to be sold as an album. So Apple actually had to make a change to their store and say, okay, we can no longer let you buy them individually, but you can buy the whole album for like 10, 12, 15 bucks, whatever it was at the time. Okay, no big deal. The other day, because the music store for Apple has also turned to subscriptions, so you have the option of buying the album and downloading it, or you can listen to music on the fly. Today, I was having a moment at work, so I'm like, I need something to like to amp me up. I need something to get me going because I just felt like frustrated at work, which has been the case. So I just grab my phone out real fast, type in Monster Magnet Power Trip, start listening to that. Like, fuck yes. I learned very quickly I cannot listen to Monster Magnet while I'm doing QC work because my hands shake.
Oh shit! All right.
I was like getting amped. I want to like run around somewhere. Um, but I thought about it. I'm like, wait a minute. I actually own a copy of the physical album. It's in my collection at home. I love the album itself. I first listened to Monster Magnet back in the day, and it stuck with me. It was a very particular time in my life when I needed angry music to get me through. And Space Lord from Monster Magnet is a very particular song for me. But that's to say that here I am now streaming Monster Magnet on my phone at work. So long as I have a cellular connection, I'm good. But I'm not actually listening to the physical album. For any reason, if Apple decides, oh, our licensing agreement with their studio or with the band has run out or it's run its course, we're going to have to pull Monster Magnet. They can take it off of your device. They can say it's no longer available due to licensing agreements. They can take away the thing that you bought or paid for. If you're streaming it, no harm, no foul, because it's just no longer available. Big whoop. It's like watching a movie on Netflix or on Amazon Prime. If that deal runs out, then that movie goes away from that service. But if you want to listen to a song, especially a song that you've bought in the past, you're just like, well, what the hell? Now, they can't come into my home and remove the physical copy of that album out of my collection. I own it. I have it. It's physically mine. I can do whatever I want with it at that point. But this also comes on the heels of Sony and PlayStation, their PlayStation Store, where their agreement with Discovery ran its course due to the different mergers and everything else, Discovery, Warner Brothers, where the licensing agreement they had for stuff that was available through the PlayStation Store, if you bought these episodes, there was a whole list that they had that they said, unfortunately, due to licensing agreements, these titles will no longer be available for viewing. And people were pissed. So the one that pops up in my head immediately is Mythbusters. If you had the entire run of Mythbusters from Discovery, all the different seasons, it's a fun show. You go back to watch. It's good to have in the background, whatever the case is. It's an entertaining show. But if you dropped, let's say, $100, $200 for a few seasons of the show, one day you come home from work, you're tired, you just want to watch something that's easy to watch, but also entertaining. You're like, I'm going to watch some stuff from the PlayStation Store. Let's see what's in my library. Hey, what happened to Mythbusters? What the fuck? Then you call up customer service. Hey, yeah, the thing that I paid for is no longer available. Oh, yeah, we don't have the rights for it anymore, so we can't show it on your console. Wait a minute, you mean the thing that I bought from your online store and downloaded to my hard drive, you've now removed? Yes. Okay, well, I want a refund. Oh, we can't do that. The fuck you say? That's the idea of get used to not owning something because it's not yours.
I've been hearing about this for a while. I remember, I think it was, what's the book service that is run through Amazon?
Audible.
Audible, thank you. I remember reading an article some years ago in Audible. Somebody bought a book or had some books, and all of a sudden they're like, hey, I got stuff disappearing. And when they dug into it and found it out, they learned that, they basically said, well, we lost the rights to it, so we took it off of there. And they said, well, what about the money for the book? And they're like, well, that's life. You should have read the fine print, which is pretty shitty on their part.
Yeah, that's... If you want to talk about good customer service, say, oh, hey, we are sorry. Here's a credit for another book. Hopefully that'll make it up to you. It's one thing if you bought the book, you can actually, pay for the book as well. I've seen that a couple times here and there. Up until recently, I had to actually pause my Audible account because I had a few credits building up. I'm like, I just don't have the time to listen to the books that I want to. Some books are many hours long and just don't have the time to dedicate to them all at once. I listen to so many different podcasts and everything else that it's kind of hard to cram it all in sometimes. But yeah, if you have your books, and especially if you have a wish list, you're like, oh, I'll make time to listen to this on vacation, or I'll make time to listen to this when I'm on break, whatever the case is. And then suddenly that book's no longer there. It's like, what happened? It's one thing I can see if they say, hey, we're no longer allowed to offer this book. It's no longer available for purchase or for credits. You just can't get it that way. But if it's on your device, which it does do that, it gives you the option to download it to your device.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you're done with it, you can delete it from your device. The title remains in your library. Different story. I can see that. Okay, maybe then if the licensing agreement runs out or whatever the case is, then maybe it goes away from there. But if it's on your device in the case of PlayStation, and your PS5 suddenly doesn't have the song, the show, the movie, whatever the case is, and they're like, oh, we don't offer that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, what the fuck? This happened to me in a way back with I want to say it was the Xbox 360. They had the Xbox Arcade, and I downloaded a copy of X-Men, the arcade game.
Okay.
It was the big side scroller when Konami was putting out all these games, very much in the same vein of The Simpsons or Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles from that same era.
Yeah, I remember that one. Yeah, that was a great game.
Yeah, very formulaic, but fucking it worked, especially for that version of the X-Men. It was based off of the 1980s TV pilot that never aired, which was called Pride of the X-Men. If you're an X-Men fan, I implore you, look it up. Pride of the X-Men on YouTube. It's available. Trust me, you'll find it. It's always a fun watch, and it's a fun what could have been had they picked it up from that point instead of later in the 90s with the X-Men cartoon that did become popular on Fox. I bought the game. It gave you both the American and the Japanese version. The difference between the two was, in the American version, if you use your mutant powers, your life would drain. Kind of annoying, but if you bought the game at that point, you have endless continues. You can keep playing, no problem. If you're playing the Japanese game, you can actually use your mutant powers without that penalty. And they offered you little health canisters to replenish your life at different points throughout the board. So it was less of a coin muncher, as it was called back in the day.
I was gonna say you can definitely see the recipe of we need this in the arcade and we need to figure out every way to get people to keep pumping quarters into this bad boy.
Exactly. And that's what I was designed.
The style at the time.
Yes. Try playing Revolution X on $10. Impossible. I think we played and cranked at least $20-$30 into that game easy, because it's very, very easy to get taken out over and over and over again. Same
what
thing
the hell
with
is Revolution X?
Oh, you never played Revolution X?
I don't know. What is it?
It's the Aerosmith game that came out. It was a shooter.
Oh, that piece of shit.
Exactly.
Okay. I played that with, actually, it was the night of your bachelor party when we were at Yestercades.
Okay.
I believe that night Jimmy and I played through that entire game.
It's not a good game.
No, we were just happened to keep on going because it was free play, because you pay by the hour over at Yestercades in Somerville, New Jersey. And we just kept on going, and for some reason we just finished the game. And I think afterwards we even looked at each other and was like, wow, that was fucking stupid.
Yes, it can be. Absolutely. Same thing with the T2 Terminator game, the shooter.
Yeah.
You get to a certain point and it's just like, this is just ridiculous. Like, whatever. It's just not satisfying as you get towards the end of the game. But yeah, those Revolution X was fun because you obviously had the Aerosmith music. If you were a fan, great. They also had digital versions of them in the game, so you would see like a weird pixelated Steven Tyler, or I can't remember the name of the guitarist off my head.
Joe Perry.
Joe Perry, thank you. But it was fun to see that, like, play it out, no problem. You take it out of the corporation, blah 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 blah. That was another coin muncher. Those would just eat your quarters left and right, and there was no way you were gonna only spend $1 or $2. No, like I need to beat the game. I need to beat the board. I need to see what's next. That's how they get you.
Yeah.
For the X-Men game, going back to the Xbox Arcade or my Xbox 360. I bought the game. I love the game. I play it. Sometimes Jen would join me. Sometimes friends would play when they were over. And then, time moves on, different hardware, but it's still connected to my account. So I'm like, okay, great. Xbox One had emulation where you could play older titles and you could dig into your old library and play. So I'm like, all right, great. I had access to X-Men, the arcade game, on my Xbox One. I played it a few times there. It was great. Then I had my Xbox Series S. I go to look for it. Can't find it.
Okay.
Go online to my account. Log in, check it out, see my history. Can't find it. Email Microsoft support. We don't see it on your account history. No, I have the email where the confirmation came through. I know I bought it. I played it a lot. Trust me, I know the game inside and out. We're sorry, we can't help you with that. I didn't ask for my money back. I was just like, well, that sucks. Where's the game that I bought? And because they lost whatever license, or at least the license ran out, I should say, they never really bothered renewing it because they thought it was just like I don't want to say it was like a nostalgic buy, but it was just like, okay, we'll get this for a while, include it in our library, it'll be a selling point, and then after it runs out, it runs out.
Yeah.
They're more worried about, first party titles that they can always offer. A third party title, for them, they have to pay for that. So if they don't have to pay for it, it's gone. But I've, to a lesser degree, and it's not, don't get me wrong, nowadays, if you know how to download certain programs and get certain emulators and ROMs and set them up and everything else, you can get whatever old nostalgic game. I mean, we have a bar top in my son's room with a bunch of old classic arcade games that Jen set up. That was using a Raspberry Pi. That's the mini computer that you can download. Size of a credit card, but very powerful, and you can run a bunch of old games. If you know how to jailbreak a Nintendo Wii, same thing. You get an SD card loaded up with a bunch of ROMs, set up the emulator. Same thing there. Nowadays, with the new Steam Deck, which is the portable handheld from Steam, you can play PC games on the go. And wouldn't you know it, our one friend jailbroke it and just loaded on a bunch of old emulators.
Oh, that's cool. Okay.
So,
I didn't know you could do that.
Oh, yeah. If it's got an operating system and storage space, you can pretty much set up anything you want to play emulators, and it's pretty cool. There's been a bunch of like knockoff Game Boy variants where you can buy the hardware and assemble the hardware yourself, and just load up a bunch of emulators. And if you have the right ROMs, then you can play your favorite arcade games on the go. So, just a bunch of different projects for anybody who out there who likes to do electronics or just tinkering. It's always fun with that stuff. That's all to say. People were talking about, especially with ROMs, a while back, Nintendo took down this one website and sued the hell out of them for hosting ROMs of their old classic games. You're thinking to yourself, well, why are they suing? Well, Nintendo in particular is very protective of their IP. So even an old version of, let's say, the classic Mario Brothers. I'm not talking about Super Mario Brothers. I'm talking about the old one where you're jumping through pipes and you're worrying about the crabs and everything else. Even a copy of that old game, or like the old Donkey Kong or the old, Punch Out, let's say, stuff like that, they are very protective of, and they will not let somebody online host the free ROMs and just, hey, download them whenever you want. They sued the crap out of that one guy. I can't remember what the dollar amount was, but it was pretty darn hefty. So ROMs have become a very, very big thing, especially now with the arcade scene popping up all over again, because classic games are important. But companies like Midway that are no longer there, like, what happened to those licenses? What happened to those games? Well, other companies bought them out, so their libraries revert to their ownership, and it's like, what do you do? If you buy an arcade machine, do you have to pay the original vendor? No, but that's an arcade machine. If you're going to download that ROM to play on your computer or your handheld device or your phone, whatever the case is, somebody's going to get upset and somebody's going to come looking. And if you make a big enough commotion, then they're like, oh yeah, you owe us money. And I'm like,
Oh yeah.
well, what the fuck? Your game used to cost a quarter back in the day. You're charging me like hundreds of thousands of dollars. Well, you broke a few rules. And that's where the lawsuits and everything start coming in, the cease and desist letters. But once again, it's coming down to saying, be ready to not own the games that you play. It's ownership is no longer yours. But if that's the case, then when people are pirating the games, they didn't buy it to begin with. So the catch-22 of this is them saying, get used to not owning the games that you play. Okay, that's fine. But then when people go to download illegally or legally, whatever the case is, when they go to get their hands on the game, then they can't complain when the piracy happens. Because now there's essentially legitimizing piracy, whether it be games, music, or otherwise. It's
well, yes and no.
No, I know there's a line in there somewhere, but
Uh-huh.
it's a weird thing to say to tell somebody that even though you bought something, you don't own it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's become more prevalent in the world of electronic repairs or car repairs. There's the one story of the guy who, I think it was a Tesla. It was an EV of some sort, where something happened. They took it in for repair, and the battery had to get replaced. And they gave the guy a $60,000 repair bill. And it's like, wait, what the fuck? Wait, the car is that much. You're charging me the amount of the car. That makes no sense. They could easily go in and replace the parts that need to be replaced without having to do the whole battery assembly. And it would cost a couple $100 maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But instead of doing that, they want to replace the entire assembly, which is like this whole piece that's put together of smaller sub-assemblies. And like, oh no, it's going to cost this much.
But wait a minute, didn't that story have something to do with the fact that it was the battery for the thing was an obsolete model, so they had to track one down and it was the best price they could get for it?
Oh, I didn't hear that. That's interesting.
It might be a different story. I don't want to talk too much because I don't have the exact facts, but there was some story going around because a lot of right-wing shitdeals love to, and yeah, electric cars are not perfect by any measure of the word. They got a long ways to go on them.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of empty-headed dumb fucks out there like will take any opportunity to just trash the idea of electric vehicles and just say, see, this technology is shit, and if you like it, you're a dummy. So I do recall there was some story that they kept saying about like, oh yeah, if the battery goes, it's going to cost you more than the car and all that kind of nonsense, which of course then the point is, well, then just buy a new car and just pull the battery out of that and leave the rest behind, because who cares?
Yeah.
But yeah, it turned out it had something to do with the fact it was an older model and it was broken down and fucked up production with the whole thing. So, but I'm working off of a fractured memory here, so I'm going to say no more.
Okay, no, fair enough. That was news to me. I work in the world of electronics, so I know when somebody says, hey, you can either repair this, and depending on what the item is, if it's a small component, you could probably buy it for a couple bucks, maybe $50, $70, $100 depending. Or if you have to replace an entire assembly within the unit, then it's going to be a little bit more expensive, probably more expensive than the unit is currently worth. It was a good example was Samsung phones. Was it? No, sorry, I think it was a Google phone. Where if you wanted to replace the battery would cost maybe like $50, $60. But because of the way they put the battery in the phone, they glue it to the back of the LCD screen.
Huh.
So now you have to replace the battery and the screen. Now the screen will cost about $200, $250. If you look up for that, yeah. If you look up that model phone runs about $200, $250. So what makes more sense? Replace the screen and the battery, or get a new phone?
Mm-hmm.
So,
or never do business with that company again for doing some shitheel stuff like that.
Correct. and that's what's becoming part of the problem now, is that with if you look up right to repair, there was been a whole thing with the Senate, and they were talking about, people should have the ability to repair their equipment, whether it be a TV, a phone, your car, John Deere tractors. That became part of the argument at one point too, where they were saying, oh no, it has to be done by a licensed mechanic or a licensed repair personnel. And she's like, that doesn't sound about right. If you buy something, it's your prerogative at that point, whether you want to replace it, repair it, trash it, whatever the case is. But in the case of Apple's saying that, oh no, if something goes wrong on the phone, you have to bring it to one of our Genius bars and have one of our technicians work on it. Okay, well, how much is that going to cost me? Well, to replace this, it's going to cost about $200. What the fuck? It's like a $30 part. Well, we're not replacing the part, we're replacing the entire assembly. Okay, like MacBook Pros have become really, really notorious for some of the failures that happen because of the production of some of the boards, the assembly boards, the motherboards, whatever the case is. There is a gentleman by the name of Louis Rossmann on YouTube. If you look him up online, he has a bunch of great videos where he breaks down a lot of these different things. Ubisoft, right to repair, a bunch of these different things that happen where they're saying, hey, look, they want you to buy a new model. They want you to buy a new phone. They want you to buy a new, whatever the case is. They don't want you to repair it. They don't want you to get it repaired. For them, they want more sales. They don't want repairs. That kind of sucks because environmentally, that doesn't really work. That's more materials, more hazardous materials, I should say, that are going into the environment because you're just throwing something in the trash. E-waste is a big thing. And he's a big proponent of saying, hey, look, we should be able to repair things if they break down. If you have the know-how, great. Grab yourself a soldering iron, grab yourself a screwdriver, fix it, replace it, whatever the case is, you're good from there. If you want to get a whole new phone, game console, car, you have that option too, but some people don't have pockets that run that deep. There was a video that he had put up a few weeks back. I was editing and I had this in the background. It popped up. It's really funny, where he says he's upset with subscription models. So if you have an art program that you have on your tablet or your computer, you should be able to use that program no matter what. You paid for it, it's yours, you're using it. Now they're saying, oh, you have to pay us a subscription fee. Well, somebody sent him something and says, can you help me? Because this is something that's broken, and I don't know if it can be fixed, but I figured if there's anybody who could do it, it would be you, because otherwise I have to buy a new one. The item in question was a cock ring.
Huh.
Trojan has this cock ring that you can buy at stores. Piece of silicone with a vibrating motor encapsulated in this plastic material. And the idea is you use it once, you're done with it, throw it away. If you want another one, buy another one. Or on Amazon, you can buy a subscription and they'll send you one every month, every 2 months, every 3 months, whatever the case is. And he goes, wait a minute. We're living in the age now where you can get a subscription to a cock ring? Fuck that. I'm going to fix it. He opened it up. He took it apart. He massacred the little plastic components and pieces and motors inside of it. Went as far as to find the specific switches that were inside of it, the different contact pieces. And he had 2 or 3 different videos of him just online saying over and over again, you should not have to pay for a subscription for a cock ring. This thing should work every time. He went in, he found that it had batteries. He found that it didn't have a gasket to keep it safe from any bodily fluids or other. So if you use it one time and if you're moist in certain situations, then yeah, it would probably destroy the cock ring. And you'd have to buy another one. What would happen with that one? When that one got messed up, you'd have to buy another one. So there's 2 solutions to this. Either you keep buying them whenever you want to get frisky. You look for another one that's probably a little bit more durable from a more reputable brand. Or, as you said before, don't do business with people like that because fuck that.
Exactly.
So it was an entertaining few videos of him saying, no, you should not have to pay for a subscription for a cock ring. You should not have to pay for a subscription for a lot of stuff. So if you were to buy, let's say, a modern day camera, digital camera, you buy it, it's got all the features you're looking for, you want to be a photographer on your own time, hobbyist kind of thing, great, no problem. And then all of a sudden you get an email from the manufacturer saying, thank you for buying our hardware. If you want to continue to have access to all the features, you will not have to buy a subscription with us. Wait, I bought the hardware. It's a camera. What features are you going to hold back that I have to now pay for on a monthly basis. What the hell? The fact that things have now become subscription based all around
Hmm.
is getting kind of worrisome, because it is playing into the idea, get used to not owning it because it's ours. You're just using it, or you're renting it essentially. And I think with the use of streaming services, people no longer buy CDs. So music is now mostly digital. People really don't buy DVDs. They use streaming platforms, or they'll buy things online for a digital copy. They've gotten so used to that that now physical copies of things, movies, music, have become harder and harder to find. And now people are saying that no, we should go back to physical media. Like we've gotten away from it. You and I have talked about it before. One of the movies that's hard to find, and you gave me a copy, I believe you said, right? I don't recall. Kevin Smith's Dogma.
Yeah.
It,
In fact, yeah, I gave that to you a ways back, I believe.
it's a hard to find movie nowadays.
It's
On
out of print.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's the Weinstein Company owned the rights. Kevin Smith and he had a falling out before the whole Weinstein trial and everything, but it's just one of those things that you're not going to be able to find it very easily. If you find it somewhere, it's probably like 30-40 bucks or more. Or if you go to Kevin Smith's store down in, what is it, Red Bank,
Yes.
if you get a
That
signed
sounds right.
copy, it's going to be a lot more expensive than that. So it's just like, okay, I gotta find it. I know Dan gave me another copy, so I at this point I think I have two copies. But if that's the case, it's a hard to find movie, and that's going to be happening more and more when some of these films just go out of print. Whether the movie studio doesn't think it's going to be as popular, or they don't think it's going to work out as well. One of the movies that you and I always talk about on and off is The Adventures of Ford Fairlane for Andrew Dice Clay.
Hmm.
Apparently, it was put on DVD at one point. It's really hard
Huh.
to find because it was a small print run. I don't know if there's enough anticipation for it or enough call for it. Maybe they might do a Blu-ray release. What was another one? Back in November, I completely forgot about this, and it just popped up in my head right now. The old movie, The Monster Squad,
Yes.
back in November, got a Blu-ray release.
Hmm.
I would imagine that's going to be a limited run, because who remembers The Monster Squad?
People of our age group.
If you say Wolfman's Got Nards, we'll remember it. If you say it to the younger generation, like, what the fuck does that mean? So, stuff like that. It's just going to be more and more where these films aren't going to be as widely available on physical media. Now, if you have the time, if you have the patience, you can go to your different streaming platforms. You can go to Netflix, you can go to Amazon Prime, you can go to Hulu, you can go to Paramount, you can go to Peacock, Tubi. I mean, take your pick. There's a bunch of different places out there that might have what you're looking for. It might not be available for regular streaming. You might have to buy or rent it, which is in that case you're shelling out like what? At least $4 for the rental, maybe like 15-20 for the purchase.
Something like that. Yeah.
But then you're running back into that problem of, hey, it might not be there down the road. So you have to wait and see what happens. One of the ones for me, I like James Bond films. And the Daniel Craig run of movies I've enjoyed thus far. Casino Royale, awesome movie. Quantum of Solace, give or take. Skyfall, great fucking film. I've been wanting to watch No Time to Die,
Uh-huh.
but I won't let myself watch that one until I watch Spectre, is the one after Skyfall.
That sounds right.
I can't find Spectre anywhere for regular viewing on streaming platforms. I can find it to buy or rent. I don't want to do that. I've got kids. That's to say, I have a limited budget when it comes to entertainment. I already play for streaming platforms. Some friends have even been nice enough to let us use their accounts from time to time. But I can't find Spectre anywhere for regular streaming. So I was like, I don't want to buy it. I don't want to rent it. I just want to watch it regularly. All the other films I can find in different areas, Netflix, Amazon, whatever the case is, they're available, but it's just like, why is Spectre the one that, for whatever reason, doesn't allow to get played?
Mm-hmm.
It just confounds me. And it comes down to contracts, whatever the case is. Same thing with Marvel and Sony when it comes to the Spider-Man franchise. Currently on Disney Plus, you can watch Spider-Man Homecoming and Spider-Man Far From Home, two of which took a long while to get to Disney Plus streaming. What the hell? Sony let it play on Stars, the movie channel and streaming app, and had the contract that it would stay there for a certain amount of time, and then it would be available to head over to Disney Plus for other viewing. Otherwise, they were selling the physical copies in stores and saying, hey, you can buy it on digital on these different platforms. And it worked out because they're like, hey, we want as much of the money at the sales we can. I've been dying to watch Spider-Man No Way Home.
Uh-huh.
The third film is a fun film. It's got a lot of stuff going on, along with the return of old villains and the return of two alternate Spider-Men. Disney Plus does not have it. Stars has it. I don't feel like signing up for another account.
Uh-huh.
I don't feel like paying for it right now because, again, it's not something that's a necessity for me. I love the movie. It's fun, but I paid for it in the theater already. I would just like to watch it on a streaming platform. In the background, I have Fast X play on Amazon Prime.
Okay.
Now, we already got the subscription, so no big deal. But I can watch Vin Diesel and company be silly whenever I want because a lot of the movies are available there. I don't have to buy them. I don't have to rent them. They're just available. Why are certain films this way and others are not? It's like, who picks and chooses what films will be available? But it all comes back down to, we don't own it. We just use the platform. We pay a subscription for viewing privileges, and we just have whatever library is available. Remember back in the day when Netflix was saying, oh, make sure you watch these titles. They're going away by the end of the month. And people are like, wait, what's going on now?
Yeah.
And people realize that, oh, they rotate their titles, not just because they want to have something fresh for the viewers, but also because the server space, the different data that they use. It's easier for them to say, okay, we're done with this film. Let's take it off our server. It's not there anymore. Let's upload something else and have it available for anybody who wants to watch it.
Uh-huh.
I don't know the complete logistics of it, but when it comes to using server and a data center, you have to make sure that things are on point. Otherwise, you're going to get a lot of complaints. So if they want to take down, let's say, the James Bond franchise and say, oh, we lost the license, HBO Max has that now. Okay, it goes over there, Netflix loses it, but they replace it with something else.
Yep.
Another spy thriller or another action movie, whatever the case is. Or another round of Daniel Craig movies. Or Pierce Brosnan, whatever you want. It just, that's the game now. And we have kind of fallen into the trap of, let's not get tied to owning it because it's not ours. It's available in certain instances, depending on what you're willing to pay for it or how far you're willing to go for it, but it's no longer yours. So if you have a CD collection, if you have a DVD collection, hell, if you even have a VHS collection that's still in good shape, hold on to that. Treasure that shit. Because it's harder and harder to come by, and it's only going to get more difficult as time goes on.
Uh-huh.
So I'm happy that I have a copy of Monster Magnet in my collection. I'm happy that I have a copy, maybe 2 copies of Dogma at this point. Some stuff that I have, like I know I had a copy of the Animatrix when that first came out. The little short stories based off the Matrix and the different storytellers and creators creating their versions of what to tell within the realm of the Matrix. That was always fun. I don't know where it is now, but it's not something that you're going to find in stores. Hell, Best Buy is getting rid of their DVDs.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, it's just, they got rid of their CDs a long time ago. It's just that something else that like, oh, nobody's coming in to buy this anymore. Let's get rid of it. So I don't know what the future holds. I don't know if we're going to have a return to physical media or if that's even an idea at this point. I know there's a call for it, but if there's not the dollars, let's put it this way, if the demand's not there, they're not going to supply it. We've become more and more of a digital streaming idea that's what it's going to be now. If you want it,
I think I think what's going to happen a lot of it is I Amazon will still have them, so people are going to order DVDs through there, but especially since you can sell them used on there as well. Um, yeah, I'm getting to that point where if I'm watching something, if I watch it once on streaming, I was like, that's fine. But if there's something I watch multiple times, yeah, I'm going to pick up a copy of it at this point because you never know when it's going to be around. It's if you rent it 2 or 3 times on Amazon, all of a sudden you pretty much come close to like the cost of a used copy of that DVD. And yeah, there's just no point to it after a while. So it's sad too because everybody, and actually one of the best things I've heard is secondhand stores, thrift stores, a lot
hmm
of places like that. They're great places to go DVD hunting nowadays.
yeah, absolutely. I'm thinking to myself like flea markets from back in the day. But that also, at that point, you start worrying about collectors and things getting more expensive. Video games is another one, as we were talking about before, because certain games, especially Nintendo, will run limited print runs of their games. Some of those prices will start skyrocketing. I own a copy of a PlayStation game, PlayStation 1. It's the Misadventures of Tron.
Okay, what's
It,
that?
it's a spin off of Mega Man Legends. Mega Man Legends was the first 3D Mega Man game. It was more like a RPG, not
Okay,
your typical side scroller and shooting or platform game. And Tron was a spin off of one of the characters. She was the villain in the first Mega Man Legends game. Capcom thought, hey, there was enough interest in the character. Let's make a game of her own. It came out at the time, didn't get crazy amount of attention. The fans of Mega Man games obviously loved it. The gaming community as a whole, whatever. It was lost to all the different other releases of games throughout the months and years. I have a copy of the game. I bought it on the lark. I said I'll get to it eventually. I've never played it. It's in my collection. I looked up the price for it. It runs anywhere between $500 to $600. I paid $40 for this game.
wow,
If it was sealed, it would be more.
good
I'm
gravy.
tempted. I'm tempted to send it out because now what they do, like comic books, there's grading of games where you can send it out to hopefully a reputable center. They'll go over it with a fine tooth comb. They'll put it in a plastic case, like a little sealed case, put a little rating on it, and say, hey, this is the game and this is the supposed value of it. I'm considering getting it graded only because at that point that I can probably get a few more bucks than what it currently is worth. Again, I have a family, I have other responsibilities. Holding on to an old game that I never got to play, maybe I'll find an emulator, or maybe somebody else will have a copy that I can borrow down the line, whatever the case is. I don't need to hold on to something like that. It can go away. I could use a few bucks. It'll help things around the house.
There you go. Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm like, why are games becoming so expensive? It's like absolutely ridiculous. And that's because there's limited runs. There's companies out there that they only did one printing or only did a particular printing or they had variants, whatever the case is. And now these games are becoming harder and harder to find. You would think like back in the day, the old Nintendo games, you could find them all over the place. Again, thrift stores, flea markets, online. But even old NES games have become more and more expensive. Why?
Collectors.
Exactly.
If
And
there's something that actually, if there, one of the many, many fallouts of the pandemic, in my opinion, was people had too much fucking time on their hands. They started collecting shit.
yes.
Um, I saw this firsthand because I got two friends of mine who are big into wrestling, collecting wrestling figures. And around this time, the old Hasbro figures from like the 80s into the 90s, all of a sudden those things caught fire hard. To the point where prices were like, in short periods of time, they were going up by like 100%.
Yes, absolutely.
The market's starting to cool down now, but it's still pretty wild. But yeah, it happened with the same thing. Like all of a sudden, people were doing the same kind of nonsense with all kinds of stuff, whether it was action figures, games, comics was out of control, Pokemon cards, trading cards of all kinds. All of a sudden, everything just went balls wild.
Yeah.
So,
Um, there was a new trading game that came out from a company called Ravensburger, and they put out a card game called Disney Lorcana. It's like Magic the Gathering with simplified rules, from what I'm told. It came out, and they had a limited print run for the first set. There was a lot of demand there, and prices started going up. Not for the players, but because the collectors were buying them and reselling them.
Mm-hmm.
So you could buy a sealed box of boosters for this game. It would run you about 120, 140. They're going
Okay.
for almost double that on eBay.
Oh, those are the goddamn flippers, and they're fucking scum.
Hey, fuck you. I've tried that every now and then. I don't jump in on it initially, but if I see there's a little like window and I might be able to make a few bucks, I'll say, oh yeah, I'll throw my hat in every now and then. I don't go for the big lots like some of these other people do, but like I've thankfully been able to meet a few people and like, oh yeah, if you need something, we can help you out. I'm like, all right, cool, then give me the fucking box.
My entire point with the entire thing is a lot of this stuff, and I know it's not just kids playing this stuff anymore, adults are into it as well.
Yes.
But I'm thinking of like how many kids are out there who are like saving up their money. It's like, okay, I got enough for this retail. Oh, retail's all sold out. So some guy
Yes.
came in with his credit card and bought up everything so he could put it up on eBay and try to sell it for, because I know somebody who does that and I really don't like the guy. So that's one of the reasons why I talk so much shit on flippers.
So here's a fun little story for you then. We have a friend who runs a comic book store out in Greenbrook,
Mm-hmm.
and he got a
Wait, I
shipment.
thought he got rid of the brick and mortar store.
No, he moved to a different location. Oh no, no, you're
Oh,
talking
okay.
about another friend. No, that's you're talking about Wild Pig. That's a different story entirely.
Okay, never
Yeah.
mind. Sorry.
No, the new place is a place called Heroes World in Greenbrook. Nice guy, met through a friend of a friend, got to know him, and we just started nerding and geeking out over a bunch of different things like G.I. Joe, Masters of the Universe, Transformers, bunch of old cartoons and old movies. When it came to Disney Lorcana, I'm like, oh, can I buy a box off you if you have it? And he goes, I've got it, but I'm like, hey, look, I understand. If you want to sell to your clientele, if you have customers that are coming in and looking for the booster packs, I understand if you want to turn me down. No hard feelings. I'm thinking I'm going to make a few bucks before Christmas. If I can't, no harm, no foul. You sell it to your customers because you want people coming in for them. If people come in and say, oh, you don't have them, they're less likely to come to your store again. If you have them available, they're like, oh, he's got them. Then they'll probably come back again and again looking for them. So I was like, no big deal. Don't worry about it. He said, yeah, okay, I appreciate that. It's going to have to be a no for now. I was like, that's cool. No worries. About a week later, he called me up. Hey, my supplier helped me out. I'm actually going to get a few more. And yeah, if you want to buy a box, I can spare a box. I was like, great. I'll be down this Friday. And picked it up from him. This is before the holidays. Picked it up, gave it to a friend. They were going to settle online. Then they're going to give me the profits after they take a cut, whatever the case is. I'm like, it's just a few extra bucks, trying to stretch my money out a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Not doing it on a regular basis. I'm not trying to, like you said, take from the kids. Little Jimmy's going to get his cards. Don't worry about it. But I figured, okay, let's see what happens. Same thing with right now with G.I. Joes. G.I. Joe figures are having a big nostalgia boom. For anybody who used to collect the 3.5-inch figures back in the day, now Hasbro has G.I. Joe classified. And all that is they're taking the old Joes from the 80s and they're making them into large 6-inch figures and updating some of the features and some of the details on them. But here's the thing. Like you had mentioned before, during the pandemic, a lot of people were collecting. So the series started around that time, when the pandemic hit. And I really didn't think anything of it. So I saw some of the figures in stores, walked past them, didn't care about them. Again, money was limited. I had the other priorities. Now, some of those figures that were retailing for like 22, 25 bucks run for like 60, 70 bucks.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, why? Collectors
Yep.
bought them. Collectors want to resell them. I found a few places online. There are some figures in particular that I want to get from the early run of this set. Because again, for me, it's nostalgia. I had all the G.I. Joe figures growing up. G.I. Joes and Transformers were my thing. But there's a Destro that I want to get my hand on. The character just looks awesome. I love the character in the cartoon. That figure easily runs anywhere between 40 to 60 bucks. I'm not paying above retail for a plastic figure. I'm not going to do it. I think the most I've gone for is 30 bucks. And that was like maybe like a special edition figure or something like that. But I've been patient and I've been able to find it in different avenues, whether it be eBay or Amazon or just caught a sale, whatever the case is. Again, our friend who runs the comic shop, I sold him a few things and I've traded with him a few times to the point where I now have a credit with him. and some of the older Joe figures that he has. He goes, yeah, I'll knock a few bucks off for you if you want. I'm like, great. At this point, I'm not spending my cash because I have a credit with him, and
Uh-huh.
I'm getting the figures at a discount if I really want them. But at the same time, I'm like, do I really need this figure? I don't need to buy all the figures. I just want to buy certain ones to try to recapture some of my childhood. And the thing is, I'm not even opening them up. They're all in boxes. So what am I doing? I'm waiting for my youngest to one day find the box, rip it open. I'm gonna get upset. I'm like, oh fuck! You open up I lost $25. It's a plastic figure. Fucking go play with it. Have fun with it. If you climbed the shelf and you got the figure off of there or whatever the case is, and then fucking just have it. I can always buy another one if I really want to.
Well, here's the wild thing too. I know of people who, if they're going out and they're like, oh, I found this fig I like, they'll buy. I do know a guy who sometimes, if it's something he really likes, he will buy three. He will buy one. He will buy one to keep in the box. He will buy one to open up and play with, and he'll buy one to flip.
That's a collector. Yes.
Yeah, because it's one of those things where, especially for a lot of the wrestling figs, it kind of breaks out regionally. So, yeah, there's like entire Facebook groups. What's their faces? Matt Cardona, the former Broski, and
yes, I know who you're talking about. Yes.
yeah, him and I'm blanking on the other guy, Kurt Hawkins. Can't remember any of his multitudes of names over the Brian Myers. They used to do a podcast. Well, not so much a podcast. It was like a video cast where wherever they were on the road with when they were both working for the WWE,
Yes.
they would go to the local independent toy store and go see what they had. And eventually, after they both got shit canned in as one of the purges during the pandemic back in like spring of 2020, they said, screw it, our show is popular. So they started doing that full time, and they started a Patreon, and they started a podcast. And they also had like, if you buy in at a certain level of their Patreon, they'll add you to their Facebook group where it's just all of their fans, and it's basically everybody just running around like buying and selling from each other and stuff like that.
Oh no shit.
Yeah, it's like a whole like secondary market that came up from that, and it's one of those weird deals too where, from what I'm not involved in it because the last thing I want is more clutter in my apartment, to be perfectly honest with you. But I'm not a fan of stuff, as you're well aware. But yeah, there's some people in there who are just such assholes where somebody I know actually got into one hell of an argument with somebody on there because they had a figure, and you're only supposed to like sell them for retail and a couple of reasonable bucks extra for expenses. So like if it's like a $30 figure, if you sell it for like 40 to cover like your shipping, your handling, your packing supplies, and maybe like gasoline, that's reasonable to like sell it for. But they have people in there trying to be like, well, I have to sell this $30 figure for $70 because, well, packaging's up and shipping's up and postage is up and all that kind of stuff like that. So a lot of scummy people trying to like get over on each other because, well, I hate to say it once again, if you're involved in the wrestling business, there's about a 40% chance you're a scumbag. And that percentage is only a little bit lower if you're only tangentially involved.
Yeah, no, collectors are very much the same ilk. I completely agree. And I can't tell you how many times in some of the collectors threads that I'm in, whether it be Transformers, G.I. Joe, or any other, toy group, they're scammers. There are people saying, oh, it's a $50 figure, but if you give me a $25 deposit, I'll mark it as sold and hold it for you. And then the person disappears with the money, and they do that to multiple people. It's just like, what the fuck are we doing here, guys? Like, this is not you're being predatory within something like a fandom that is supposed to just be enjoying the cartoon or the toy, whatever the case is. But there's always somebody who wants to try to, get one over on somebody, get a few extra bucks. Shit like that just drives me nuts. And there's always the alert of be on the lookout for this guy. He's a known scammer, blah 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 blah. And it just makes it harder and harder to buy stuff online where you're like, oh, you're buying with confidence, you're gonna get a good figure, whatever the case is. But that's where I guess eBay has a little bit better of a system, even though if you have to go through customer support, it can be frustrating. But that's what you have to contend with, unfortunately. If you do go to some of the independent shops, it's fun because you get to see some of the other stuff that's there. Again, our friend's shop out in Greenbrook, he has a multitude of things, and it's always fun to see what comes through the doors. But
Mm.
At the same time, he sells them for what they're worth sometimes, because he's got overhead he has to worry about. There are some old mask figures, Mobile Armor Strike Command from the 80s. I remember having them because I got them for like my birthday and for Christmas. They were old figures. The figures would have like a combat mode. The little figurines had little helmets you can put on them. Fun little stuff. I saw one of the vehicles and the pilot. It was like 140, 150 bucks. I'm like, say what now? That was like 20, 30 bucks back in the day. He goes, yeah, that's what they're running for now. I'm like, all right, fair enough, dude. That's your shop. And he prices them fairly. He's not trying to price gouge. He will make deals every now and then as well. But I'm just like, wow, I didn't realize those went up in value. I had the entire set. I wish I held on to them. But things happen when you grow up and you move from place to place, and things get lost in transition sometimes. So, but it is what it is. It's fun stuff.
Yeah.
All that's to say, if you've got something, hold on to it. Cherish that shit. I know you have like a small collection of things. You have things that you actually want. You don't have like an entire bookshelf full of multiple items. You get what you want and you hold on to it, and that's it. Me, on the other hand,
Wait,
I have well, I'm saying, like, so I remember in your old place when you were here in Jersey,
Mm-hmm.
you had a bookshelf with a bunch of books, a bunch of DVDs, but nothing like crazy. It wasn't packed. It wasn't overflowing.
Yeah.
You picked and choose what you wanted, and you had specific tastes. Me, on the other hand, I've got movies over here. I've got comic books over there. I have a storage unit full of a comic book collection. I'm collecting figures again. I have a Crow figure. I have a Batman figure. There's a Transformer figure. There's a Mega Man figure. And this is all stuff that I'm looking at in the living room. I have a bookshelf full of a bunch of different tchotchkes, books, and DVDs. I have a lot of shit.
Yes, you do.
What's that line from Fight Club? Your stuff usually ends up owning you.
The stuff you own ends up owning you.
Yeah, I'm paraphrasing, but yes. My collection has essentially begun to own me. And to the point where I have to now pay a monthly fee for a storage unit just so that my comic book collection can exist somewhere so that my sons can have a room. I say that right now, and I'm kicking myself. I'm like, you know what? I should just get rid of my fucking comic book collection. In reality, I'm hoping that when my kids get older, if they grow an appreciation for it, maybe I can give it to them, and maybe they can do something with it. Do I have a lot of good stuff? I have a few things here and there that might be worthy of reselling or collector's item. If I were to resell my entire comic book collection, that's entirely the story. I would never get anywhere near what I paid for it over the years. So
it's interesting too because friends of mine who I do my other podcast with, and I stay at their house periodically, they have an entire room devoted to collectibles.
yeah.
There's an extra couch in there. That's where I sleep if I stay at their house, and he's probably got maybe 25 long and short boxes of comics, a couple of bookshelves full of graphic novels, trades, omnibuses, all the other stuff. Multiple shelves filled with all of his wrestling figures. Do you know what a detolf is?
I'm blanking. What is that?
That's those glass cases that IKEA sells that were very popular during the pandemic.
Yes.
Because
Okay.
people would buy them and love to be like, oh, I can buy figures and stuff like that and display them in here. And there's even very easy ways where you can add like lights to it to make it look like almost like a museum piece in a way.
Yes, LED lightings are a great thing.
Yeah, and he's got one of those, and it's loaded with like vintage figures. Like the top shelf of his detolf is devoted to his Terry Funk figure collection.
Oh, no shit. That's cool.
Yeah, and he was even like, we were talking about one day, it's like, he was even showing me, he's like, oh yeah, this one was like a super rare Japanese figure that I got my hands on. And I was like, how much did you pay for that? I got to ask. He was like, $200. And I was like, God damn, Val. But he's a huge Terry Funk fan, so it carries extra value for him, especially with Terry Funk passing away back in August.
Yeah.
So, and for me, like, I would never want any of that stuff. Like, I'm constantly looking for ways to get rid of stuff. Hell, I just recently, I don't think I bought anything physical with the exception of a few odds and ends. I barely ever buy stuff for myself just because, like, I don't want stuff. Like, I don't like clutter. It's like kind of like part of it was living with Jimmy and Holly, and both of them have lots of stuff too.
Yeah.
So I was
Well.
constantly like when we cleaned out the old house back in 2017 when Jimmy left country and Holly and I moved into the other house. Some of the shit we found, like I think we filled up about 60 contractor bags full of garbage
Holy
just
shit.
because there was, and they had only lived in that house since 2008. That was 9 years of them piling things on top of other things on top of other things. And there was lots of stuff that, like, I would periodically even message Jimmy after he left the country and be like, hey, what's this? And he was like, oh, yeah, I forgot I had that. And I was like, well, why the fuck did you still have it, you dumb bastard? Like, what the fuck? Like, I found a box of VHS tapes from some type of medical devices facility that, I mean, it was 2017. What the fuck are we still doing with VHS tapes? And he took home a box of them for, I don't know what the hell he was going to do with them, but he fucking shoved them in the corner, forgot about them, probably found them a couple of years later, shoved them in the back of a closet, and there they sat until the day they went into a garbage bag. And it's like, God damn it, dude. Like, do you remember those stupid fucking chairs he had with no legs?
Yes.
It felt so fucking good to burn those goddamn things. I fucking burned them, and it felt so fucking good to torch those cocksuckers.
Whenever we'd go over to watch movies or just hang out, he goes, here, have a chair. Like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah, it's like, what is this stupid piece of shit, you weird fuck? Yeah.
I was like, I'll try it.
I remember I even sent him a picture, and he was like, are you doing blacksmithing? I was like, no, I burnt your stupid fucking chair. And he's like, oh, okay.
Oh, that's perfect.
Yeah, I remember that day. That was a very fine day back in August of 2017.
Well, see, that's something that he bought. Now he's getting used to not owning it anymore. It's gone up in smoke. It's a very, very
Exactly,
apt
yeah.
Conclusion to this whole thing. That's I can picture the glee and like just like the smoldering smoke coming off of it as it just lay there and just ashes and charred pieces.
I probably had like a grim smile on my face while I smoked a cigarette and stared at it. Yeah,
Did you light a clove off of it?
quite possibly. No, I couldn't. Like the fire, those things. There was so much lacquer on those stupid things. Those things burnt hot. I remember that much.
Fair enough. Yes. Yeah, he always had a very eclectic cho- aesthetic. Let's put it that way.
Hmm.
So it was very, very interesting. I love Jimmy. All right, sir. I think we've gone far enough on this one. This has been one of our longest one in a while.
Yeah. I think we're about ready to wrap up.
Oh, absolutely. If you've made it this far, I hope you've been entertained. I hope you had fun. Yeah, I think that's about it. Anything else to add, sir?
No, I think we're good.
Thank you for listening. Hold on to your physical media and your toys or whatever you have. Have fun. Enjoy them. And as always, we are the Rabblecast.